The Tigers celebrate, and Nate Yeskie recaps a title run. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. LSU on Wednesday night held their championship celebration at Alec Box Stadium with thousands of adoring fans in attendance. It was noted by former Tiger Chris Demui that, former Tiger Ray Wright, and then liked by former Tiger Chris Demui, that LSU had more fans in attendance at their championship celebration than most college programs have in attendance at their games. But that's what makes LSU different. And also the ability to attract coaches like Nate Yeskie. And you'll hear from Nate Yeskie in this episode because I had a chance to visit with LSU's pitching coach after the team arrived back in Baton Rouge following their College World Series championship. And it was an enlightening conversation, and one that sometimes is a reminder that, it is one that is a reminder, that sometimes there are different things going on for people that are part of a human element that you may not understand or recognize in the moment. And I was certainly reminded of that when I asked Nate Yeskie the same question that I asked Jay Johnson. And I talked about, what were those first quiet moments like? You win the title, there's the pandemonium on the field, the trophy presentation, you fight through throngs of fans to get to your bus, you drive back to the hotel, you get off the bus, and then there's thousands of fans in the lobby waiting for you. And when you finally get a quiet moment, whenever that is, in your hotel room, maybe the next morning when you're getting coffee, whatever it is, when you get a quiet moment, what is that like? And Nate Yeskie's answer was, just give a listen.
It's almost like crossing the finish line to a degree. Just we know what each 12-month window looks like, and we're kind of on the start of a new one here today. Mm-hmm. It was a little tough. My family has traveled to this event every year that I've been fortunate enough to be here, and losing my dad earlier this year was tough. And he would love being here. He would love seeing other family members and just being at the ballpark and being able to talk to fans and just enjoy it. I mean, I grew up on the baseball field, and being around him and my grandfather, who both enjoyed it, it was bittersweet being out in front of the statue out front where we were able to do things. And I looked over at the seats where they would sit the year that we won it, and the space where they would be at other times when we were playing. So that was a tough pill to swallow. I'm sure they had better seats at this time to be able to watch, but at the same time, I mean, it was great. My daughter is getting older. She's much more in tune with what's going on than the first time or second time or, the other times that she's been here. So it's fun watching her just kind of have the awareness to how the game's played, who's doing what, is so-and-so okay. And my wife, I mean, she's a warrior. She's been really just kind of welded into the cockpit with me to go and go on this journey. And she supports those kids, through thick and thin. And it's just really fun to be able to share it with them and certainly our fans as well.
What an incredible answer. If you don't remember the story or maybe hadn't heard, back at the beginning of April, Nate Yeskie's father died. It was a Thursday before LSU played Oklahoma. And the next day, Nate Yeskie called every pitch of Kade Anderson's complete game shutout at Oklahoma, the 135 pitch performance when the weather was in the 40s, which set LSU off to a sweep of Oklahoma. That was the first game after Nate Yeskie's father passed. And it is a reminder. It's a stirring reminder of the humanity of these people who we watch on a field or through a screen, and we marvel at what they do and sometimes criticize what they do, largely rooted in the fact that, you love your team. But sometimes we do forget that there are human beings under those ball caps and jerseys and out on the field dealing with real things like you and I deal with. And for Nate Yeskie, I thought that was I'm very appreciative for that answer. The candor, the vulnerability in that answer, I thought was fantastic. Because, even me, someone who covers the team on a daily basis, in that moment of the championship, and when I asked that question, it wasn't forefront of my mind about what happened, 2.5 months ago when he lost his father, but clearly very present. And it's also very clear that LSU is fortunate to have Nate Yeskie. I pulled this number because I think this is going to be stirring to some people, just to illustrate how good this pitching staff was this year. The LSU pitching staff in 2025 had a 3.73 ERA. A 3.73 ERA. Okay. 2 years ago, LSU won the national championship. Paul Skeens, Ty Floyd, Thatcher Hurd, Griffin Herring, Riley Cooper, Nate Ackenhausen, you know the drill. That team had a 4.74 ERA. The team with Paul Skeens, the best season we've ever seen in the history of this program by a pitcher. And that team's ERA was a full point higher than this one with Nate Yeskie as its pitching coach. That team with Wes Johnson as its pitching coach, that was so great that it got Wes Johnson the head coaching job at Georgia. And LSU's ERA this year was a full run lower than 2 years ago in 2023. I understand early in this year, there were issues with walks and there was frustration, and I don't blame you. But part of this thing, as I've always said, is an evolution. And if you're an everydayer, shout out to you because you've heard me say this so much that it's probably annoying to you now, but shout out because you keep coming back. One of the things that even still, when we expect dominance, which is what the expectation is for this baseball program, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that it doesn't matter if you're LSU or if you're Louisiana Tech or if you're North Dakota State or if you're Coastal Carolina or if you're Wake Tech Community College. Shout out Paul Gervais. Your season is an evolution. You have to figure out who you have and who you can trust in what roles. That is an evolution that takes time. So early in this season, when LSU was using 15 different pitchers trying to figure out who they could trust in what roles, yes, you had guys that worked through struggles and had walks and a lot of different things, but that happens every year. And then you identify who your key guys are in what roles, and then you use them in conference play and hopefully all the way through the postseason, which they did. You realize in the championship series, LSU used 3 pitchers? LSU used 3 pitchers in the championship series. Kade Anderson threw a complete game. Anthony Einstein, Chase Shores, game 2. That's it. You didn't use Case and Evans in the championship series. You didn't need him. Didn't use Zach Cowan. Didn't use Jacob Myers. Didn't need him. Because you established roles. And the goal is to use the regular season to put you in a position to be a national seed so that your path to Omaha runs through the box. And then you win the postseason at home, you get to Omaha, and you lean on the 5-7 pitchers that you're absolutely going to need to get you through that tournament. And hopefully you stay in the winner's bracket. And Nate Yeskie managed that beautifully this year, and he deserves a ton of credit, especially with a very emotional thing that he went through in losing his father. Now, he also had the great luxury of having Kade Anderson, the best pitcher in college baseball, on his staff. And Nate Yeskie will share with you an interesting story about Kade Anderson before that complete game shutout against Coastal Carolina. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Got some friends that did that for Omaha. Maybe you did that for Omaha. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. And Gametime makes it possible. See, Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, a lowest price guarantee. It takes all the worrying out of buying. I used Gametime whenever I went and saw the Yankees and the Red Sox up in Boston a few weeks ago, and I literally sat in a Boston bar outside of Fenway about an hour before first pitch and bought my seats on Gametime. You can do it as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. For as long as LSU plays baseball, we will be talking about Kade Anderson's complete game shutout against Coastal Carolina in Game 1 of the 2025 Championship Series. He was otherworldly. It wasn't just a complete game shutout. It was a 1-0 complete game shutout. Every pitch was a high-leverage pitch. You absolutely had to have it. It wasn't like LSU's offense was rolling, and so Kade Anderson was pitching loose and free. LSU had a 1-0 lead in the first inning, and Kade Anderson threw up 9 zeros. 8 zeros after LSU got him a 1-run lead, and that's all they could muster. Every pitch was high leverage, and he never faltered throughout. And what was so interesting in talking to Nate Yeskie, you would assume sometimes when a pitcher has it going, you probably know in the pregame bullpen, oh, like I feel good today. A shooter in pregame warmups will tell you, had the touch, knew it was there. A quarterback might even tell you before a game, yeah, I'm feeling fresh today. The arm's feeling loose. It's going to be a good day. A golfer on the range or on the pregame, round putting green will tell you, I'm feeling it today. My stroke is there. That's not exactly what Nate Yeskie noticed from Kade Anderson before they played Coastal.
No, I thought he was spraying it a little bit. He's even in the bullpen, and I thought, okay, he'll reel it in at some point, and he did there for a bit. But that's the blessing of having stuff. It's the blessing of having 4 pitches, and at times when they started to adjust, he would go on to something else that was working for him. I mean, he struck guys out with the changeup, the curveball, the slider, the fastball, and he was seemingly just enough ahead of each guy to be able to really get himself where he needed to and pick up the victory. And at times when he really needed to make a pitch, he made the pitch. And I think that's a quality that you see in guys that are winners in this sport in particular, because sometimes you might not be very good early in the count, but late in the count when it matters, if you can buckle down and make it. And I thought even Anthony did that to some degree yesterday as well. So, Brett Laxton's performance, I watched that when I was in high school and thought, man, it's oof. So I'm aware of what that looks like, and was fortunate enough to be in the dugout when another young man had done something similar some years ago. So it's just, I don't know if you can ever predict those things. You just kind of watch it unfold, and our guys, they certainly enjoy playing behind Kade. And when he's got the ball, we feel like we've got a chance to beat anybody.
What was the one you were in the dugout for?
In 2018, we had a young man throw a 2-hit shutout in Game 3 of the finals. Yep. So it's just great to be a part of that and watch those kids do the things that they do. So it's very.
2018, of course, was the year when Oregon State defeated Arkansas in Game 2. There was the drop pop foul that would have won the national championship for Arkansas, and went to a Game 3, and Oregon State had the complete game shutout in that ball game, and Nate Yeskie was there for it. Another feather in his cap. One of the we're not done talking about Kade Anderson, but playing these sound bites from my interview with Nate Yeskie is certainly an intriguing part. It's an engaging, it's an interesting way to do this show. Another interesting way to do this show would be to read all the mean tweets about Nate Yeskie that I got throughout the course of this season, because some of you, and you know who you are, were not too pleased early in this season. But my goodness, did Nate Yeskie make all of you look foolish, because this pitching staff was absolutely stellar when they identified the guys they wanted, who they developed, and none bigger at the development role, than Kade Anderson. I know I've shared this with you before, and I've shared this number a lot because it's so jarring every time I say it. You probably know what I'm going to say. But as a freshman a year ago, Kade Anderson's ERA in conference play was 27. 27. He just couldn't get SEC hitters out a year ago. The stuff was great. I mean, that didn't change. He was still throwing mid-90s and had a great spin rate on his breaking ball, but just didn't know how to pitch yet to get SEC hitters out. My goodness, did he figure it out? Because Kade Anderson ended up having an elite season for LSU in what will be his last season for the Tigers. So good, so that it's going to very likely net him the first overall pick in the draft in the Washington Nationals organization. 2 complete game shutouts, both away from Alex Box Stadium. One, as we mentioned, in the beginning of April over at Oklahoma, and then in Omaha in the National Championship Series. Just absolutely incredible. A 3.18 ERA on the season, led the country with 180 strikeouts in 119 innings pitched, just 35 walks. Kade Anderson was absolutely otherworldly. Nate Yeskie took time to explain that growth by Anderson.
Well, it's the challenge, and I would compare it to, I would say, football in the SEC. A lot of times you're not going to see a freshman get under center and be able to just sling it around the field and be on a Heisman watch list or winning a Heisman. And there's a lot of complexities that go with it, and there's lots of guys in other dugouts that are good at their job, and they're going to set their lineups and do some things. And a lot of times when you're a freshman, you're going up, especially in this day and age where kids are getting a fifth year, in some cases 6 years. Heck, there was a young man that Coach Johnson and I had recruited, I believe it was at Arizona, that was in maybe his 6th or 7th year of college baseball, and that was this year. So to put it in perspective, when you're 18, most kids are coming out of high school. When you're 24, 25, you should be in AA. And that's just not the case anymore in college athletics. So it's a challenge physically, it's a challenge mentally, it's a challenge emotionally. And Kade was up to the task. And I think we saw that based on his performance, but you knew it was coming at some point based on how he went about his business. You knew, because you can, again, using football, you stand on the sideline, you see a guy zip the ball out of his hand, and you're like, as soon as he learns how to read the safeties, this guy's going to have it figured out, and pass protection, whatever it may be. And in Kade's sense, it was just getting a better sense of reading swings, understanding things, and he and I would communicate a lot of times just in game with a look, and he would recognize some of the things that we discussed. And once he started recognizing those things, it was just a matter of almost getting the heck out of his way and just let him go.
Let him go pitch, and go pitch he did. Kade Anderson, a stellar season for LSU and helping pace the Tigers to the national championship, of course, under the tutelage of Nate Yeskie. And now the question becomes, what about that next crop, as Kade Anderson will be off to the MLB draft? One guy who presumably is going to have a big decision to make is Chase Shores. Nate Yeskie gave his take on Shores. You'll hear that in just a second. And we'll run through what that staff will likely look like in 2026. That's next to wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. It was Nate Yeskie coaching Kade Anderson, Anthony Ianson, Chase Shores, the 3 pitchers that threw in the National Championship Series, pacing LSU to the title. And when we saw Chase Shores at the end of this season, it was the thing that, it was the light switch, the light bulb that made everybody look and go, oh, that's the freshman in 2023 that everybody was so high on. Why Jay Johnson ran him out there as a freshman, because he knew that was in there. And he didn't pitch for 18 months. And so there was a lot of rust that Shores had to work out this year. And he needed mound time to do it. It was the only thing that was going to work. He needed mound time to get there. And when you look at the season Chase Shores had this year, it's very evident of that. He finished with a 5.09 ERA, which is eye-popping. 70 strikeouts and 63 and 2/3 innings pitched. He walked 31 hitters. By comparison, in roughly half the innings pitched, Kade Anderson, Shores walked 31, that Anderson walked 36, and double the amount of innings pitched. It was an evolution for Kade Anderson, but for Chase Shores, excuse me. My goodness, when Chase Shores figured it out, he was awesome. And Nate Yeskie talked about the big righty.
You know, my wife and I were just talking about it, and I said it was like he was the gas that was being poured on the flames of our fan base, because it seemed like as each fastball kind of ripped through the zone and he was landing the breaking ball and punching guys out, it was like they just kept turning the volume up and and get it going. And I really thought there at the end, like, he was doing such a good job of pressing the ball with quality pitches in the bottom of the strike zone. When you're doing that, you're one pitch away from it. And I had leaned over to Kade Anderson beforehand because he was doing the chart. And I said, a double play would be nice to end this thing. And I started thinking to myself, I would like it to be 4-6-3 because I just feel like it plays better between those two guys in that direction. I wasn't going to be picky. I really didn't care. But when it was hit out of the hand, when it was put in play and it was turned, I kind of blacked out for a minute. I turned around and I couldn't find anybody to celebrate with, and Bill Franques was standing there, and I think I scared the daylights out of him because I grabbed him and bear hugged him, and I said, "You know what? This is the best guy that I can find right now, so you're getting it, buddy." And he had shared with me, he said, this is probably the best portion of the celebration that he was able to enjoy because each one of them is different in his mind, but I don't know that he's been in the trenches in that capacity. His role is different. Sometimes he's probably up in the press box, but he's been here for all of them, and certainly just the perspective that he provides. I enjoy talking with him, but then obviously you find Jay and the rest of the staff and the players, and it's one of those things that you want to be able to slow it down. And that's the hard part when you're going into the ninth that people may not understand is you're sitting there wanting that double play ball, but you're also wanting to pause, because you're never going to see that team play together again. And so it's really, just kind of crazy when you're putting all of those things through your mind. Like, you want to see him play, you want to see him succeed, but you also don't want it to end. It was a storybook ending for these kids, and one that they definitely earned.
It's a strange juxtaposition of feelings, but one that makes a lot of sense. Nate Yeskie was super candid in this interview, and I appreciate it. If you want to hear the interview in its entirety, it's actually from my radio show. If you go to YouTube or podcast, you search After Further Review or AFR LSU, you'll see the full Nate Yeskie interview. But it's interesting that he was talking about Shores. And by the way, sincere hat tip to Bill Franques. If you're not familiar, Bill Franques is the longtime sports information director for LSU baseball. He's the public address announcer at Alec Box Stadium, and on the road, he's on the radio broadcast. I think most LSU baseball fans are familiar with who Bill is, but Bill has held that job since the 1980s and early in Skip Bertman's tenure, and has been there for all of them. And I know I've told the story before, but Bill was on the call for the Warren Morris homer, and one of the most incredible demonstrations of restraint from a broadcaster is if you go listen to that call, and I have about a 3-minute call of it. If you know, Warren Morris hit the home run. The batter before Warren Morris was Tim Lanier, who struck out swinging on a devastating curveball and from Robbie Morrison. Lanier was on the all-tournament team. Lanier was amazing in that tournament. But from the moment Tim Lanier swung over that breaking ball until about a minute after Warren Morris hit the home run, it scored, and all the pandemonium, Bill Franques didn't say a word, which is getting out of the way and letting the moment breathe and letting the play-by-play announcer have it. It was one of the most incredible broadcast moments. Like, literally saying nothing is one of the most incredible broadcast moments ever. But anyway, Bill's there for all of them. I'm glad Nate Yeskie brought it up. Shores is interesting because I was talking to a scout, and if you look at mock drafts, no one really has Chase Shores in the first round right now. And the sort of consensus on Shores is that he's probably a back of round 2, middle back of round 2 guy. Maybe somewhere in that competitive balance, but likely going to sign over slot for about $2 million is the sort of feeling on Shores. Well, the really interesting decision that Chase Shores is going to have to make is, okay, you passed on money out of high school, you came to LSU, you blew out and had Tommy John. 18 months off the mound, you come back, it's an evolution, and by the end of the season, you're rocking. And you're going to have a team that's probably going to offer you about $2 million. Do you take the $2 million, or do you come back to LSU for 2026, where you got a great chance to be the Friday night guy? I mean, at worst, you're in the rotation, and potentially be the first pick of the draft. Because I'm here to tell you, friends, when you throw 101 miles an hour, you have a 90-mile-an-hour wipeout slider, you add one more breaking ball, you are Paul Skeens. And I don't mean for that to be blasphemous. I'm just talking about in the MLB draft, they select on projectability. And when you got a dude that throws 101 with a 90-mile-an-hour slider, if he adds another breaking pitch to that repertoire, Katie bar the door. He is filthy, nasty, disgusting. And you saw it. And so when you look at the top of the draft, for example, slot value for the first pick, this year, like if Kade Anderson goes number 1 overall, the slot value for that pick is $11 million. Number 2 with the Angels is 10-2, then 9-5, 8-7, 8-1, 7-5. All that to say, if Chase Shores, let's say, signs this year and gets $2 million, awesome. If he comes back to LSU and becomes the 5th pick in the draft, the Cardinals slot this year is 8-1. Is it worth coming back for the possibility of making an extra $5, $6, $7 million? Maybe. As a risk and reward, and something Chase Shores will have to weigh and the decision he'll have to make. But one thing is for certain. While you would love for Chase Shores to come back, whether he does or doesn't, Kason Evans is back. William Schmidt is back. Maverick Rizzi, Cooper Williams, Jaden Newt, Devin Sheeran coming off of the torn ACL, who's been absolutely tearing it up in summer baseball right now. Gavin Guidry could very well be back. Zach Cowan, if he doesn't get picked, could be back. Could he be a rotational piece, or does he stay in the bullpen? All things that we'll wait and see how it evolves here in this offseason. But you got all those guys that I just mentioned, in addition to portal additions, because LSU is going to add portal pitchers, and then your freshman class coming in. And you could say, well, how are the freshmen going to come in on that? Did we expect Kason Evans to have the role he did this year? Probably not, but he did. So all that to say, Nate Yeskie is going to have a very exceptional mold of clay, or ball of clay, with which to mold this pitching staff next year as they try to defend their title. And we'll be here for it every step of the way. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, on YouTube as well. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day.